it. LA Times, I stay on page 6. I'm even your favorite's favorite. You better tell them who's the boss, me.
What's shaking, guys? It's Audio Bacon. Today we're gonna go over the 21 best sounding true wireless earbuds. Now, I don't work out and I don't talk to humans on the phone, and I play my music loud, so we're not going to get into noise cancellation or battery life or phone calls or IPX ratings. This is going to be focused primarily on sound quality. Now, I'll put the timestamps in the description below so that you could jump around if you need to. None of the brands are sponsoring this video, so these are just my unbiased opinions. Let's get to it. Alright, so this is the Enacfire E20. It's one of the first true wireless earbuds I've purchased. It was around 50 bucks at the time, but now I wouldn't recommend these at all for sound quality. It does come with one neat feature, which is the little 5-volt USB port in the back, which actually came in handy when I was on an airplane charging my phone. Overall, it was just easy to pair, just plug in. Never had issues with disconnects, and it just worked. Although the sound quality is one of the poorest I've ever heard from a true wireless. So yeah, nothing to write home about, but I just wanted to mention this just because at 50 bucks you could do a lot better than this. So here we have the Apple's Airpods Pro, and it comes in this little small charging case. It's actually the smallest charging case that we have here out of all the true wireless earbuds. The build quality is pretty good. It has these like silver accents and it feels good in the fingertips. However, as far as sound, it wasn't that great. I think it was a little more sterile, a little more neutral. It didn't have a lot of bass, and so I wanted to figure out a way to maximize the sound quality out of these things. And the first thing I did was actually go into off mode. And in order to do that, you have to hold this little handle here until you hear a low-end thump. And the other two modes are the active noise canceling and the ambient modes. But once you're in off mode, that will allow you to maximize your sound quality. The next step is actually to EQ it. So in order to bring out the bass and smooth out the mids a little bit, you have to edit the EQ curve for your app. And here I have a boost at 60 Hertz, and it kind of tapers a little bit, adding a little bit of body and warmth to the mids. And it has this little slight U tilt towards treble. So this opens it up a little bit. And with this configuration, I thought it sounded really good. I think solo piano, acoustic, simplistic music sounded pretty good when there's not a lot of things going on. So that said, when things get busy with alternative or heavy metal or busy rock or even some more complicated electronic music, the Apple AirPods kind of just fall apart. They can't really delineate, it doesn't really separate all the instruments. You don't know where the voices and soundstage begins or ends. It's just kind of one little, I guess, grouped together picture of the music. And because of that, it sounds very flat. And so, not flat like neutral, but flat like a board. So it's as if you're like painting a house on a flat canvas, or you're actually 3D printing one. So a lot of these true wireless earbuds, they can actually sculpt out the music a lot better, and you get a better sense of presence and gravity to the music. But the AirPods Pro kind of remains flat the whole time. So when it gets really busy, you're just not really engaged. It just sounds like nothing special, right? Obviously, these are not made for sound quality. I think you're paying more for the build, the portability, the active noise canceling, which is really good, and of course the brand. So for casual listeners, this works out perfectly. I mean, as long as you EQ it, you get pretty good sound. But if you're a critical listener, especially if you're a tone freak, you're not going to like these at all. They're not for critical listening. But, you know, for the casual listener, this is perfect. Just make sure you EQ it and you'll be fine. So this is the Aukey Series EPT10. I kind of want to show you the case a little bit. It's actually very different from the rest. You have to swivel to open it, and then you have to have tiny fingers to pull the buds out. This is not really convenient, and I find it a little bit of a hassle when I have to swivel it back to close up the buds. This kind of doesn't make sense to me. As far as sound quality though, this is a warmer counterpart to the Apple AirPods Pro. And as such, I think it sounds more natural. It has a more warmth to it, more density to it, to the music. The mid-range is actually pretty clear. There's a lot of detail in the mids, and the lyrics are very intelligible. But other than that, the whole soundscape is a little mushy, a little blended. This is especially the case with the bass. And so the bass is kind of like, it kind of comes out, but then it's a little flabby. It's not very defined. It sounds more like a fart, to be honest. And so that's kind of the theme for these earbuds. It's kind of a warm, cozy, more intimate sound where it doesn't really shine. It doesn't really have a lot of treble energy. It doesn't really have a lot of detail. When there's a lot of instruments playing, saxophone, trumpets, you can't really tell which instrument is playing. And so this is not really an audiophile grade earbud. But at 110 bucks, it makes you wonder. I don't think I would pay 110 bucks for its sound quality, but if you enjoy the design and the packaging, I guess it might be worth it. All right, so here we have the HiFi Man TWS 600s. These out of the box were a little rough, so I had to break them in a little bit, and they're a little up tilted towards the treble, and the mids are a little scooped out or cupped, so it's a little more laid back. It's not very forward or crisp sounding. After some EQing on Spotify, I did a bump around 250, cut in the upper treble area. Sometimes actually adding a little bit of treble adds more air to this, but that boost in the mids helped solidify the mids a little bit, give it a little more texture, give it a little bit more warmth. And so overall, the sound was very smooth. It was never abrasive, easy to listen to, very detailed. And in comparison to the SoundSport buds, that's when you start to hear some differences. It's like this one, you can hear the technical differences where image is a lot better, there's more refinement, there's more air, there's more energy, there's more stringiness, I guess, to the Samsung buds. However, this sounds a lot leaner than the TWS. I think the TWS has a denser, more organic tone to it, and it actually layers out more organically than the buds, but the buds have more technical precision. And so it kind of depends on what you're looking for and if you want to EQ, because this does require some EQ to sound good. And if you prefer a transparent, smooth, and neutral sound, this might actually work for you. All right, so here we have the Edifier TWS NB. I heard these at CES this year and they sounded pretty good. One thing I noticed is that it sounds to me better when they are in active noise canceling mode. It's a little warmer, a little denser. With it off, it's a little brighter, a little thinner. And so I actually preferred it with the active noise canceling on. As far as the sound, it's very different from the rest of the app on the rest of the True Wireless earbuds here. It has a different tone and articulation that doesn't really compare with the rest of them here. So the top end's a little bit rolled off. The upper mids are a little rough, and the bass is not, it doesn't extrude into the soundscape. It's there, but it's not underwhelming and it's not overwhelming anything. And so it can get pretty punchy, but imaging is a little soft. And so it has this really like analog quality to the sound. And if I were to describe it in 3 words, it would be calm, elastic, and sweet. It's almost like listening to tube amps or something like that. It's a very different sound from the rest. In a way, it sounds natural, but then it sounds a little bit like a fantasy, like a little bit glamoured, a little bit dreamy. And so it's hard to describe the sound of these actually. You just have to kind of give them a listen. But overall, it's still a very fun, relaxed listening experience with these. Although it doesn't delineate really well, it doesn't do the technical very well, it's still enjoyable, like it's still very musical. I would highly recommend just to listen because as far as sound quality and presentation, it's a bit unique, it's a bit novel from the rest of the cast. So yeah, give them a listen if you have a chance. All right, so here we have the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless Earbuds. This is the original one. I know there's a new one that just came out, the Wireless 2, which I'll probably get in a few weeks. As far as build and design, these were pretty bad. I think there's a battery problem where this is the only one where I had to charge constantly throughout this review. and it was really hard to pair. I had to reboot my phone, and the volume controls really suck. I mean, the design was very poor. I think this is their first go at it, so, but for its price point, it's pretty disappointing. Secondly, the sound quality. These are supposedly known for their sound quality, but I think a casual listener would say these sound great. As for an audiophile though, I don't think these sound great at all. It's more of a novel sound, I guess, because as far as bass, there's plenty of it. As far as detail, there's plenty of it. But there's not a lot of highs. It doesn't really shine. Cymbals don't really crash in a realistic way. It's a little too forward, and the bass kind of gets a little mushy. Like there's a little bit of a cloud over the mids too. So there's a lot of bleeding with the bass, and sometimes the bass comes in when it doesn't have to come in. And overall, the sound was just very neutral, very mellow, and I found it very boring. I couldn't really get myself to keep listening to these, and if I had to repair them to my phone, I definitely wouldn't even try. So I'm not sure what these other guys were listening to, but these are not the greatest sounding True Wireless earbuds, especially for the money. One that's better is actually the Bose SoundSport free True Wireless. These sound a lot better in every way, in my opinion, actually. So as far as bass, it has a lot of bass, imaging clarity, smoothness. I mean, this has it. I mean, they're both smooth, but I would choose this over the Sennheiser any day. Another comparison, we could do the Edifier TWS NB. These actually sound better with the noise canceling on. These are more organic sounding, and this is smoother sounding. The Sennheisers are more smoother. So it's a bit of a toss-up here. If you enjoy a more warmer sound that has more nuance, I think this is it. As far as the Sennheiser, it's just more analog. It's really mellow, very soft. It doesn't have really clean transients at all, but it does have bass. Overall, I think this earbud's overhyped, and I'll have to compare it to the wireless too. But as far as sound quality, these are not great. I don't think it's worth the money. So. All right, so here we have the Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus. I think the Plus means that it's now a dual driver, so there's actually two drivers in here. I'm not sure if it's like one dynamic or one BA, but yeah, so that's what they're selling it as, and it's really easy to describe the sound of these. So first of all, I mean, you have to download the app, and it's two apps actually. So you need to get the Samsung wearable app, and then you have to get the Buds Plus plugin to get it to work. And once you have that ready, you can select dynamic, and that's where I did most of my listening. These have a very distinct sound. They're very it's a little brighter. It's more neutral as far as tonal color, and it's very detailed. So if you want something resolving, focused, and you prioritize imaging and soundstage, this might be a very good earbud for you. As far as comparisons to the original, which I actually have here, these are a bit warmer, and I feel like there's more bass presence with this. Even though the bass is more defined here, it has more gradations. I feel like the reproduction and power of the bass on the original Buds is a lot better. Although the line's a little blurrier here, and imaging is a little more smeared, whereas for the new Buds, it's very precise, it's very refined. I mean, if you want a more organic and euphoric sound, something more musical, I think the original Buds actually work fine. Here, yeah, you get more technical improvements, and you get more detail, but it's a colder sound too. So the choice is yours, but I prefer the original Buds. All right, so here we have the Samsung Galaxy Buds. Out of the box, I thought these were a little bit harsh. So I actually had to change out the tips. So the tips matter a lot for these Buds. Not just to get a good fit, but to get better sound. And also I had to download the app, or two apps and a plugin, to set it to dynamic. And once you have a dynamic, it kind of adds a little bit more warmth to the sound, so it's not as cold. But even then, this is relatively a really cold sounding earbud, a little sterile, but it has a lot of spatial clarity. It separates really well, it has a lot of detail. It's just a very resolving earbud. The background's very black as well. And so But if you're looking for something seductive and rich and inviting, I don't think these are it. These are a little bit on the cooler, leaner side, but very energetic. It's very vibrant. But if you want an alternative, I think the Soundcore Liberty Neo is a polar opposite. It's very dark. It's a lot more, has a lot more bass. For me, this is a lot more fun and engaging, but not as precise as the Galaxy Buds. But this is only 50 bucks or less, so it's a good alternative if you're not into this type of tone. So yeah, I mean, bottom line is, if you're looking for something that is lusher, more intimate sounding, this is far from it. But if you like something that's more resolving and can deal with a little bit of sharpness, it's a little sibilant sometimes, but it has a lot of atmosphere to it and it's more vibrant, then this is a really good bud. Alright, so these are the One More stylish True Wireless in-ear headphones. I take these traveling with me a lot just because of the portability and the easy pairing, but also for the sound. It has this very cozy, warm signature that I really enjoy. And although the bass isn't super tight or super punchy, it has just enough of it to make it fun. As far as the highs though, it doesn't have a lot of shine. There's not a lot of speed and there's not a lot of hype in the sound. But as far as vocals and saxophones and other types of brass instruments, it sounds wonderful. If you want to get more transparency and detail, the alternatives would actually be the Galaxy Buds from Samsung and the Jabra 65T. Both of these have more clarity, more transparency, but they're a little cooler sounding. I still found the One More to be more musical, but I do think these have more of a dynamic presence, more hi-fi resolution over the One More, because that's definitely lacking with the One More. So as I'm listening, yeah, I do miss the detail. It doesn't sound as hi-fi, but overall I do feel this is a more musical sounding earbud. A logical upgrade to this would actually be the Powerbeats Pro. And so these have a similar signature, but perform at a much higher level and also cost more than twice the amount. So if you enjoy the signature and you want an upgrade, this would be it. The Beats Powerbeats Pro also aren't as detailed, but it at least technically sculpts and shapes out the music a lot better than the One More. And it just has more dimensions. I think the biggest flaw of these is that the soundstage and presentation is a little more flat as far as dimensionality goes. But as far as just enjoying music, listening on the go, these actually worked out perfect for me. Alright, so now we have the Jabra Elite 65T. These are super popular. I think everyone has heard of them. For some reason I thought these were going to be brighter sounding headphones, but they were actually very mid-centric, I would say. Like, voices sound very nice with these, but it's kind of a mellow, cloudy sound overall. It's a little softer. It doesn't have a lot of separation, a lot of delineation, or like shine up top. And the sound is a little bit smaller as far as imaging goes. Like, it's a little shorter, more narrow. Overall, nothing super special about these as far as sound quality goes. I wouldn't pay more than $100 for these. But I mean, some quick comparisons. The Sennheiser Momentums. I know, I mean, I've been shitting on this earbud throughout this review, but here the Sennheiser Momentum actually shines. It has more of an engaging presentation. It has more bass, it has more smoothness. It just has more of a analog sound to it, but tonally the Jabra is actually more accurate. If you're looking for tone, the Jabras are actually better than these. But this is more engaging just because of the scale. So it has a much larger sound. It has a lot more bass. But as far as accuracy goes, I would say that the Jabra is more accurate as far as intent goes. So yeah, I mean, we could compare the other ones. The Samsung Galaxy Buds. This is a much cooler sounding True Wireless earbud. And but it has a lot more detail. It's a lot quieter. It has a lot more dynamics. It just has more edge and texture to this, which gives it more of a hi-fi feel, I guess. But tonally, the Jaybird 65 is still better. There is one problem with the 65T, and I think it might be a common problem. There's an imbalance to the left. And I have the latest firmware, and I still can't figure out how to correct that. And in the app, you can actually tune these a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, I boosted the mids quite a bit just to smooth it out because there's a little coarseness there, but it gives it a lot more meat. And so, I mean, the app overall is actually pretty nice, but I still can't do the balance. If they had like a little balance slider here, that would be kind of nice. But yeah, so that's a little bothersome, but overall, easy to listen to. Not terribly bad, but not really an audiophile earbud in my opinion. So here we have the One More True Wireless ANC earphones. I'm a huge fan of One More. I have all their wired earbuds. I have their triple quads, and I also have their stylish True Wireless. And so I was really interested in giving these a listen. The case is actually pretty sleek. It actually fits well in your hand, and the design is like carbon fiber with like red microphones for active noise canceling. So in order to maximize the sound quality on these, you have to actually change the modes, in my opinion. Standard mode's very clear, very detailed, but it doesn't have any bass or body to it. ANC 1's too bassy, but ANC 2 is a softer, denser balance. It's not perfect, it's far from perfect, but I prefer that mode because I prefer a warmer signature. And so after listening, I mean, it's a really fun True Wireless earphone, and it's a definitely upgrade over the stylish True Wireless that's around $100, and I actually enjoyed it more than the Sennheiser Momentums. There are issues with this, and it's mostly to do with the imaging and the precision. For example, there are times where the strings, woodwinds, and drums are in the forefront, while the voices were recessed in the back, which doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel coherent. It feels more piecewise. So you don't get that analog feel, but you do get a sense of fun energy with these earbuds. At $200, I would think they can either upgrade the firmware so that the different modes are more consistent, or allow us to EQ it through an app. But other than that, I mean, it's still a fun sounding and enjoyable True Wireless earphone. All right, so this is the Bose SoundSport free wireless earbud. It comes in this gigantic case. It's actually one of the largest cases we have here for a True Wireless earbud. But yeah, my buddies and I, we used to make fun of Bose by saying, "Oh noes, you got Bose." But they actually did pretty good this time around. These are actually really enjoyable to listen to. I was really surprised. As far as sound, it's very smooth, very dense, very full, and very neutral. Although it does have tonal variations throughout. It's not just a single color that's blanketed over all types of genres, but it does have like different colors, different shapes, and actually like strums of guitars and like piano presses. You can actually feel the weight of them. There's a lot of strength in them. So it's very surprising, and there's a ton of bass. So I think these were made for the gym, but overall I feel like they just have this quality to them that makes it easy to listen to. It's very relaxing to listen to these. So if you're like constipated, you don't need laxatives. You just have to put these on and listen to some music. But yeah, I mean, as far as alternatives and comparisons, the Jaybird Vista, they have more clarity and energy, and but the timbre on these are better than the Bose. But the Bose sounds fuller and smoother, like it's more analog sounding. So I rank these higher just because they have more proper timbre, it has proper color, but both are pretty good, especially for the price point. And speaking of price point, I still think these sound better than the Sennheiser, the original Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless. I know there's a new one out, but if I had to choose between the two, I would definitely take the Bose over the Sennheiser, which is a bit of a surprise for me. And another comparison that people were curious about were the Sony's WF-1000X Mark III. These are, I would say these are more technically superior over the Bose. They have better imaging, better clarity, better tone. There's a lot more warmer colors with this. And there's a lot more adjustability as well with the Sonys. And so they kind of win over the Bose in many ways. But yeah, both of them are actually pretty easy to listen to. If I had to choose between these two, I would definitely just take the Sony. So yeah, I mean, huge surprise, but these were actually pretty decent. I don't think these sound bad at all, and I would definitely recommend them, especially if you're just gonna work out. But I use them just for casual listening. I just like how I can stick them in and they're just easy to listen to. There's no harshness. It just has enough detail, enough body, and enough smoothness to just kind of, you know, chill out and enjoy music. So kudos to Bose. They did a good job with this one. All right, so I don't have the box for this, but these are the Sony WF-1000X Mark IIIs. Super popular right now for good reason. I think these are what I would call a safe bet. They're easy to listen to. There's nothing really you can nitpick too much on it. It's a little bit of a crowd pleaser type of earphone, which is a interesting way to describe a true wireless earphone. But the reason why I say that is because it has a lot of great qualities. It's very detailed. It has this forward mid-range that's very insightful. It has an enormous amount of bass. To get the best sound out of these, it's pretty easy. I changed out the tips for compact tips to warm it up a little bit. And I found that ambient sound mode on actually sounds a little more detailed and a little tighter. So you have a lot of adjustability with these as well. It is more cozier than it is brilliant, so there's not a lot of shine up top, there's not a lot of shimmer, but you do get a very resolving mid-range and you get good bass. Overall, it's hard to complain about these unless you're really doing hardcore comparisons. It's hard to kind of figure out what's wrong and what's right about these. But some quick comparisons, like against the original Sennheiser Momentum, the Sony actually has more proper timbre. It has a more organic sound and it's also more transparent. So versus this actually sounds pretty veiled and cold in comparison to this. So that's something to keep in mind. The best true wireless I've heard so far, these are the Soundcore Liberty 2 Pros. The Sony is still smoother than these, but these are still the best as far as tonal color and other dynamic qualities. And so, yeah, these are not going to be the best at the technical, so they're not going to separate the sound, and they're not going to be the most dynamic. They're not going to be very tactile or tangible, but it's smooth and easy to listen to. And I think this is why people like to buy these and just enjoy the sound out of these. So it's not a bad thing. It's just not really accurate. I know that's a terrible word to describe this stuff, but as far as intent, I think these are pretty far from artistic intent. But if you just want to sit back, relax, and enjoy some music, these are great for that. Super smooth, and it's hard to complain about the sound. So there's enough detail, there's enough truth in it that it's hard to complain about it, right? So, all right, so yeah, I think that's all I have to say about these. They're definitely worth a listen, so yeah, check them out. All right, so these are the Jaybird Vistas. They're obviously made for more of the gym, and they're really compact, easy to pair, really good fit. As far as sound, these are more neutral-ish, intimate, warm. It's not the coolest, not the warmest, but it's not the most great either. So it's a decent, it's an interesting sound. It has a more forward character to it. So I guess that's how it was tuned for workouts. As far as technicals, this doesn't really shine too much. It's actually pretty flat sounding. It doesn't have a lot of dimension to the music. So I actually use their EQ app to kind of boost the mids a little bit to give it more meat. At first I did try to boost the treble to add more air, but I think I enjoyed this more because it's more solid sounding. As far as comparisons go, I have the Sony Mark III, and these are technically better than the Jaybirds. They have more focus, quieter background, more molding of the sound. It has more lifelike qualities to it, and a lot more adjustability through the app. But these have this glamour, dreamy tone that I really can't get over. It's almost like a crowd-pleasing tone where you can't really pinpoint what you don't like about it because there's nothing wrong with it, and it's really smooth. But if you compare these to the timbre, it seems more accurate with the Jaybirds as far as instruments go, like woodwinds and bells and piano notes. Like, I feel like this was more accurate, but this is more refined and it's more tight. And so if you're a tonality snob, I think you would prefer the Jaybirds. But as far as everything else, the Sony does it really well. It definitely has more detail as well. So anyway, both are easy to listen to, and obviously this is really good for the gym. So highly recommend a listen to Jaybird Vista. All right, so these are the Soundcore Liberty Neo. This is the original one, and this is the upgraded one. I bought this over a year ago. A buddy of mine wanted me to give it a listen, and right off the bat, I couldn't really pinpoint anything terribly wrong with these. And I mean, it had a lot of artistic intent. It had a lot of detail, and I couldn't really put my finger on anything terrible. I mean, it wasn't the most dimensional sound, and it wasn't the smoothest sound, but you know, for the most part, it sounded pretty good. And when he told me there were $50, under $50, I was pretty blown away and just bought myself a pair. And these are the upgraded ones I bought a few months ago. Same case, same buds too. They're actually the same form factor. But the obvious differences are playback time, 12 and 20, sweat resistance, sweat proof. But we're here about sound. So these sound very different. I believe they're made for the more mainstream crowd. It's all bass, no treble. It's very dark sounding. It's very heavy, very dense. And so this is a interesting, it was tuned interestingly because this is more tonally correct. And so if you're a tone snob on a budget, the original Liberty Neo actually sounds very good. But it sounds very flat. There's not a lot of shape to the music. But you get more highs, you get more texture, and you get more of an accurate representation of the music, in my opinion. This one's more of a party animal. I don't know if audiophiles would prefer this, but people who work out probably would appreciate the extra bass and the forwardness of the music. It's a lot more dense. And so that kind of reminded me of the Powerbeats Pro. And when I did direct comparisons with the upgraded Soundcore, yeah, you can definitely hear the differences. This is far superior, and for me, I'll definitely pay the price for this. But this, in comparison to the Powerbeats Pro, sounds very bass heavy. Sounds very dark, very dense. This is a lot more balanced, and it has more composure, it has more ease, and also has more shine and detail. So, I mean, this one does everything better than this, and this comparison made me realize how ID-gaff this one is. It's just a singular type of sound throughout all your tracks, which is a heavily dense and bass-heavy sound with this. But the big difference between the Powerbeats Pro and these two is the scale. And so these have a smaller sound. It sounds like a smaller, more narrow soundstage, and that's usually due to driver size, not always, but these are smaller, so you're gonna get a smaller sound, but you're gonna get more bass with these. So, I mean, pick your poison. I think I prefer these, the original ones. I'm not sure if you can get them anymore, but these actually sound a lot better than these, in my opinion, from a hi-fi perspective. But for fun, these are easy to recommend, and I actually like the red case. But yeah, I mean, it's up to you, but for both of these earphones, under 50 bucks is a steal. And if you're on a budget, I mean, these are easy to recommend. So here we have the Soundcore Anchor Liberty 2 Air. Obviously, they're made to compete against the Apple Airpods Pros. And to my ears, these sound better. The first thing you'll have to do is to go into the Soundcore app and select the piano preset. There's like about probably over 20 presets. Select the piano preset. I wish they would allow us to modify current presets to our own liking, because these earphones are a little rough in the mids, and I would like to smooth it out with some EQ, but then I would rather do it on top of the piano preset rather than to create my own. That said, these True Wireless earphones have some of the most accurate timbre and tonal color out of all the earphones I've heard. The drawback of that is that it's a little thin. There's not a lot of bass, and there's not a lot of body to the music. And so that results in a little bit more roughness, like a blanket roughness to the sound. It's a little bright sometimes, and it could be a little abrasive, yeah. So if you're sensitive to that type of thing, these are probably not good for you. But if it were up to me, I would actually just upgrade to the Liberty 2 Pros, which are extra 30 to 50 bucks. And it solves most of those problems, and it has a lot more bass. These are kind of light, and you're trading density and smoothness for more hype and tonal quality. So if you want to get a better idea of how instruments actually sound without blowing your budget, these are pretty good. Although the sound is a little more narrow, a little more strident, you get a better idea of tonal color with these. So give them a listen. Okay, here we have the Jabra Elite 75T, and they're a huge upgrade from the 65T, which I have here as well. You can actually check it out. These are more, I mean, this one has a magnet, so you actually wouldn't fall out. And it actually stands, which is great. Right, so you just do this. This one will basically fall out. And the buds, this is more like Beyonce buds, and these are more like Shakira buds. But as far as sound quality, it's a huge difference, especially in the bass department. These sound like they have their own driver for the bass, and is able to still keep a really resolving and transparent sound, which is a combination I don't usually hear from earphones, wired or wireless. And so that's a really impressive feat. And also Jabra allows you to EQ your sound. So I have this one. You can actually just, I just EQ'd the lower mid-range to give it more fill and kind of smooth out the coarseness. Out of the box, a little more coarse, a little more bright. And so I kind of enjoy with a little more smoothness. Here, I mean, tonally, it's not a really warm sounding earbud, but it makes it in my top 5 because it is technically impressive. It can layer the music, it can delineate, and it also, and most importantly, provides a very lifelike resolution where it's very convincing when you hear instruments and voices with these. For that reason, I mean, it makes it in my top 5. But as far as piano notes and cymbals, it's a little lean, sometimes a little cold. But overall, you still get the big picture. You still get an idea and insight into the timbre of the performers and the instruments. So this is a true wireless earbud I would highly recommend. It makes it in the top 5 for a reason, and it's a great achievement by Jabra. So check them out. All right, so these are the Powerbeats Pro. And I guess they're geared towards more workouts because of these ear hooks, but I use them just for listening to music. I brought them on a recent trip to Hawaii and was really impressed with the musicality of these earbuds. I expected a lot worse, especially given Beats' reputation in the audiophile community. But when I heard these, it was hard to nitpick exactly what was wrong with these, other than maybe it doesn't have a lot of shine, so flutes and higher pitched voices and bells don't really radiate with the right amount of edge and shine. But as for the mids, voices sound beautiful with these. It's very dense, very sculpted. Bass is pretty balanced. I mean, it's tight, it's defined, but it's not overly done. It's not boomy, surprisingly. And the most interesting part is that it keeps a really black background. So everything has mold to it, everything has shape to it. And so when you're listening to these earbuds, it has this very three-dimensional, like 3D model, 3D printed type of feeling to the sound, rather than being on a flat space with no depth. And I actually enjoy these very much, and they actually make it in my top 3. Yeah, so as far as technicals, it's not very detailed. So if you're into nuance and brilliance and transparency, this ain't it. These are on the darker side of the spectrum. So if even the let's see, like the Liberty 2 Pros, tonally these are a lot better. I mean, these are more accurate as far as tonal quality and timbre, but it gets nowhere close to the Powerbeats Pro as far as solidity and gravity and just presence. And so these actually sound very flat compared to these, especially in the realm of fullness and being more palpable, right? So if you want tonal quality, I think the Liberty 2 Pro is better. But there is no doubt that the Powerbeats Pro, it's easier to listen to, and it's smoother sounding. There's no harshness, there's no grain. It's just really, really just a great listening experience. So ups to Beats for actually cueing their stuff and making sure good ears were actually a part of the design of these earbuds. Overall, just very impressive. Wish the case was a little bit smaller though, but I didn't mind bringing it along. The sound quality is totally worth it. So, and these are pricier. I think they were like $230, $250-ish. So yeah, totally worth it. All right, here we have the Master and Dynamic MW07 Go, and this case is actually pretty wonderful. It has this cloth, and it's one of the smallest cases out there for true wireless earbuds. What's more impressive is actually the sound of these earbuds. As far as nuance, detail retrieval, and coherence, this is the best of all the ones I've heard so far. These were definitely made for the audiophile. And the reason why I say that is because as far as digging into the recordings and bringing up everything in a very faithful and naturalistic way, this one does it in a way that is in a class of its own. So it has this humanistic articulation, I would say, that I don't hear from any of the other buds. The other buds sound a little bit more crowded, a little bit more messy, but these are very precise as far as nuance. Attack, decay, transparency. It's very impressive to hear it from something that's wireless, actually. So the trade-off for that is not a lot of bass. You won't get a lot of bass. And the treble is a little more matte. It's not very shiny. So you won't get that shine, you won't get that shimmer. And the tone is neutral, so there's not a lot of color to the sound. And so if you're a timbre snob, or you like more warmth or a more euphoric sound, this is probably not good for you. But these were obviously made for the critical listener. So to fully appreciate these, you have to give it your undivided attention. A casual listener would probably be bored because it's colorless, it's neutral, there's not really a lot of engagement. But if you're paying attention, this is a huge treat. And for the price, I mean, you're getting insight into your favorite recordings with a low barrier of entry, pretty much, and in a wireless form factor, so that's even better. So yeah, I keep this as a reference just because it does things that none of the other wireless buds can do. And it was obviously made for the critical listener. If you ever get a chance, listen to the MW07 Go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the best sounding true wireless earbud I've heard so far. And these are the Soundcore Liberty 2 Pros. In order to get the best sound quality out of these, you have to use the right tips, just like any other true wireless earbud. And they actually supply you with quite a bit of them. So just try them all, figure out which one actually works the best and smooths out the sound. If you experience a lot of harshness, you probably just need to change the tips to a larger size. And also the way you twist them into your ear matters, so just kind of move them around a little bit, figure out what's the best position to get the smoothest sound. And secondly, you have to change the preset to piano in the Soundcore app. I wish we could change and adjust the preset and save it as our own, as I would actually boost the mids and the bass a little bit more to give it more punch and more meatiness. But hopefully they can do that in a future firmware update, Soundcore. So yeah, if they did that, I mean, I think this could probably be the last true wireless earbud you need to buy. What makes these earbuds amazing, of course, is the sound quality, along with a bunch of other things like battery life and wireless charging. But the sound quality on these is in another league compared to these other true wireless earbuds. And the reason why is because as far as timbre, these are the most accurate I've ever heard. And not just for true wireless earbuds, but for earphones, headphones, and even two-channel systems. And so this is a really good reference to know how a voice or an instrument is supposed to sound like. And that sounds pretty unbelievable, but I don't know what kind of drivers they're using, where they sourced them, who voiced them, but this is the most accurate I've heard so far. And what makes it even better is that you can EQ them. So this design is physically capable of enormous amounts of bass, a lot of mid-range clarity, and as much treble as you want. So I don't feel it lacking in anything spectrally. And so if you want to EQ it, you could probably get it to the point where you really enjoy it. And the only thing that I can't seem to add to the sound is density. And so usually tonal density is the trade-off for accurate timbre. And that's kind of like how the hi-fi world works. I mean, if you're going to get accurate timbre, usually you have to sacrifice a little bit of that body. But if you want more body and willing to sacrifice a little bit of the timbre and shine, I think the Powerbeats Pro is a really good option. It's more solid sounding, it has more gravity, it has more presence. It makes this sound actually pretty thin, but this won't give you an accurate representation of how a harp or a guitar or a drum sounds like. This will. And so that's what makes this earbud very special. And it's kind of my go-to now. I use it as a reference even for two-channel systems just to see how something is supposed to sound. And I think Soundcore did a fantastic job with these. And it's hard to imagine them improving it that much more. I just hope that they would actually give us more adjustability in the presets. Other than that, I tried compli tips with these as well, and it does kind of smooth it out because initially these were a little harsh in the upper mids, and the treble had a bit of a sheen that was unnatural. But with the tip changes, it seems to kind of correct all that. There's nothing really bad I can say about these. If you want, like I said, if you want to know how a performer actually sounds like, and you want to preserve their essence and humanistic quality, then this is the only true wireless earbud that does that so far. It has this really natural and convincing tone and resolution and texture that you won't really get from a lot of other hi-fi pieces of equipment. So big surprise here, very impressed, and this is my top recommendation so far. So from a company that started with battery packs and USB cables, I think there was a Google engineer or something, a bunch of Google engineers. Man, they did a fantastic job with this. So kudos to you guys. There aren't many reviewers who would do these deep comparisons of a bunch of earbuds strictly on sound quality, so hopefully you found the video useful. If you want to get more comparisons of the different combination of these True Wireless earbuds, I'll link the full review in the description. Now, I've been self-isolating for 15 years now, and the only reason why I knew something was wrong was when my internet speeds went down. And so I know we're living in very interesting times right now, and I think it'll get stranger in the next few months. So hopefully you guys are staying sane, healthy, and conserving that toilet paper. If there's any other topics you want me to cover, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll fry up the next one.